Hello everybody, and welcome to my guide on how to dominate early as the Druid. The goal of this guide is going to be exactly what it says, to help you get through the game early on as a Druid, because honestly early on is going to be the hardest part of the Druid, so making sure that you're doing things right is going to really smooth out your gameplay. This is a very legendary reliant class, so it's going to be a little tough until you actually get to those legendary aspects. However, I am going to show you some ways that you can make it easier. Alright, so first off, we're going to want to take Storm Strike and Shred. Now, the reason why we're going to take Storm Strike and Shred is because they're going to be some of the strongest base abilities that we can get. Landslide is not too bad. However, it gets a lot better with legendaries, and it was a little bit nerfed. So I'm going to go for Shred because it's going to put a very nice poison on the enemy. Now, this is going to bring me to my first tip on how to really do well on the Druid, and the first thing is going to be to make sure you do the boss mechanics. So you can see here I'm on World Tier 2, and I'm doing this just fine, and the main reason why is because, well, I'm just dodging the attacks. You see how he has a little overhead slam? Just make sure you don't stand in damage. It's going to be really important, and I'm going to show you guys some more clips as well later on, that you do the mechanics and you make sure you do the fight as it was imposed, because while other classes might be able to just ignore them or do whatever the heck they want, Druid doesn't really have that luxury, and I think the same is going to be said for the Barb. You're going to have to make sure you do the mechanics. However, it does actually make the game a heck of a lot more fun. I have had nothing but fun playing the Druid so far. Okay, so now at this point we just want to go ahead and we want to keep on going with the main quest. Now go ahead, max out the passives on Shred whenever you get to that level, and make sure that you take the poison passive that does a bunch of poison damage. For your defensive, you're going to want to go ahead and take Blood Howl. Make sure as you are moving to Lorath, and if you see events, if you see sellers, be sure to do those. This is going to be really good extra experience, and you want to make sure you're constantly killing things, clearing things out. You want to kind of be killing and moving, the whole time, just so you can kind of make sure you're keeping that experience gain going in while you are leveling up. So don't be afraid to do the sellers and the events. Those are really good, especially to stack obols. After escorting Lorath to Kiovashad, make sure to pick up that waypoint, and then we're going to make our way back to the beginning area to do our first dungeon. Alrighty, so after you make it to Tormented Runes, make sure you pick up Blood Howl. That is going to be the defensive ability, and make sure that you pick up the passive on it. That reduces the cooldown of it whenever you get a kill. The reason why we're taking it is because of the fact that you can actually reduce it. So that means early on you're going to be able to use it a lot. It's going to be like having like a second potion almost. It's going to be extremely useful just because you can reduce the CD. You can already see how fast the CD gets reduced. So when it comes to going through this dungeon, it's pretty simple. Just make your way through it, kill everything. The reason why we're doing this is just because we don't really want to have to come back here, and this also gives you a legendary that actually plays on and can potentially buff your werewolf skills. Pretty much when you kill stuff with Shred, it's going to make your next Shred do like 30% increased damage or something like that. So it's not too bad. Now, however, you're not going to be able to use it right away. Keep in mind that you do need to be breaking down all of the rares you make into veiled crystals. You do not want to sell those. You can sell the blues, you can sell the whites for gold, and the reason why you're doing that is so you can build up the gold in order to be able to pay for the imprints for your aspects and such. However, you're not really going to find that you even need the aspects. We're just picking these up just so we have options, and because it's good experience, because you cannot just run straight to another zone, and the reason why is because they have certain levels to do certain things. Like for example, if I was to say, oh, I just want to go unlock my spirit boons, well, in order to do that you have to do a stronghold that's level 19, right? That's the minimum level, because you have two different things here. You have a scaled level, which is going to be the outside world, it's going to be the dungeons, and then you have things like the world bosses, the strongholds, that have a minimum level. So it doesn't necessarily make sense to just go rush across and do all this other stuff. It's not really going to make a whole lot of a difference. That being said, but you can see how simple this build is. It's working out decently well. You know, not doing too bad. I actually did not die. I was playing on World Tier 2. I did not die. Gosh, let's see. I think I died twice, but both times it was because I was trying Malknock at like level 10, and that's a minimum level 15. I was trying to do a stronghold, which you really don't need to do or have any business doing. So the next thing is make sure you're constantly going through your gear and just putting on the upgrades. The most important thing is the weapon, right? This is going to be a really big tip for the weapon. If you do find a dropped legendary that is really good, do not imprint it on the weapon. Put it on your amulet, because you're going to be upgrading this thing every 5 seconds. From levels 1 to 24, I have upgraded the weapon like 10 times. Right? You really do not want that, and the weapon is going to be the absolute biggest damage increase that you can get. It will outdo any legendary you get. It is just always having an at-level weapon is just so important. So you really do not want to waste your dropped legendaries doing that. Okay, so now for this boss, you just want to dodge his attacks. It's pretty straightforward and pretty simple. It is going to take a little bit, but as long as you dodge the attacks, you should be fine. You have Blood Howl, and he actually does start to spawn adds, which make it to where you can actually reset your Blood Howl again, which is even nice, which is pretty nice. Okay, so now what we want to do is we just want to continue the main quest in Act 1. That's really it. We're just trying to level up. We're trying to get experience. You're going to have to complete the campaign anyway in order to get to the other stuff. So, or to get like higher world seals and stuff. So it's like it doesn't really matter if you go across the world. The only thing I can say is that if you want to get your mount, if that's something that's important to you, you have to do Act 3. Now, I am not 100% certain if you can just run to Act 3 and do it. I would imagine it's probably going to be a little above your pay grade. So my recommendation before you try something is probably complete Act 1 and then go complete Act 3, so then you can go get your mount. Because the way that works is you complete Act 3 in the beginning of Act 4, you'll be able to actually get a mount. So in terms of skills, as you are leveling up, just to kind of fill these out, so you're going to want to take Vine Creeper next. The reason why we're taking the Vine Creeper is just because it does an absolute astronomical amount of damage. I mean, when you use Vine Creeper, it will carry you and completely just destroy enemies. So now do not take the next passives after that. The next level after Vine Creeper, we're going to take the Wolves. And the reason why we take the Wolves is because the active is actually a pretty good single target burst ability, and they actually have pretty decent sustained damage. Then after that, you want to go ahead and you want to take the first passive on the Wolves, where it says they deal 20% increased damage whenever things are immobilized, because you're going to have that procced all the time. And then after that, you can go ahead and take the Vine Creeper Poison. So after that, that's kind of the base core build that you really have there. You know, once you get both of those, you're going to only have one ability slot left, so you're going to have to make the choice. Do you want to have an ultimate ability, or do you want to just use like another defensive ability? That's also fine, because keep in mind the ults really aren't that great until you start getting legendary powers or until you start getting the spirit boons. Me personally, I went ahead and picked up Cataclysm. That's what I did. But I also ended up finding legendaries that ended up buffing that. So you're going to have to make the choice on what you want to put for your last ability. I mean, really, it can be whatever you want. The main build that's killing things here is the Shred and your animal companions. So after that, it's really up to you. If you decide to not take an ultimate, just go through and just start picking up passives. Preferably or either pick up passives or start putting points into the animal companions. So before you take passives that increase the damage of an ability, make sure you max out the ability first, because you're going to get more damage that way. So for reference, right, like if you max out Wolves, it'll go all the way up to like 152%, and it starts at 110%. Whereas if you were to go and take the bonus animal companion damage, you'd only get 30% extra damage. Now keep in mind that is for both of the animal companions, obviously, but in terms of like individual skill damage, you'll get better returns overall if you actually just maxed out the skills and then took that, because you know that is a multiplier, so having a higher base for it to multiply is gonna is going to be pretty nice in terms of damage. But yeah, so, and then after that, I mean, once you hit around level 20, we'll go ahead and we'll just start talking about spirit boons. But I mean, this is kind of the build, and you should really just be wrecking things and really not having too much of a problem. And you know, you're going to get spirit boons, and then the last tip, I guess, would be, you know, let the legendaries guide you. No matter what you do, it is going to, I mean, that's really all that's going to matter. You're going to get a legendary that is going to completely change everything, and that's why I'm going to show you guys the landslide build that I ended up morphing into, and I'm going to do the Druid boon quest on it. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about the Druid boons. So once you hit level 19 is going to be when you will be able to do this. The minimum level to do the stronghold you have to do for Druid boons is going to be level 19. However, doing this is going to be worth it. You are going to have to do one more quest. However, it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward, and you're going to see here that I've kind of switched my build around a little bit. It's still like a variation, but I swapped out. You'll see I have Hurricane. You'll also see that I swapped out Shred for Landslide, and the reason for that is because I got a legendary that said when you use a Storm skill, your Earth skills gain 46% critical strike damage. When you use an Earth skill, your Storm skills gain crit chance. So, you know, at that point when you get something like that, so I threw it on my amulet and I immediately started building for that. Guess what? Another legendary drops. You deal 46% increased damage to crowd controlled enemies with Earth skills, right? So I have to keep going for that. So it's like you just have to let the legendaries guide you, and you have to be flexible enough to change your build. Now I end up changing the build a little bit more past this, but you can see I just took the animal companions, I took Hurricane. The reason why I took Hurricane was so I could have a little bit more benefit from that legendary, and then I took Landslide and I took the Terra Moat passive on it. So this thing is going to hit like a truck, and you guys are going to see that. So to unlock the spirit boons and to do this stronghold, all you have to do is walk around and find the druids. After you do that, you have to fight each druid, and then you go back to the center and you fight the boss. Pretty straightforward stuff. But anyways, I mean, at this point you really shouldn't be having too much problems. I would recommend, you know, getting a defensive legendary of some kind. If you don't do that, however, there are passives in the skill tree. So if you're still using Shred at this point for some reason, or if maybe you became a werewolf, you know, that's ended up being your thing, there's a passive in the skill tree that actually fortifies you every time you shapeshift. I highly recommend you take that, because if you're running Storm Strike and you're running Shred and you take that, you will be fortified for like 100% of your life almost all the time. It's an amazing passive, so definitely start taking that. But there isn't really much to say build-wise past here, because the legendaries will be guiding you at this point. So there really just isn't much left to say. It's going to vary so heavily depending on your RNG, your drop rate, on really what you should do and what the most optimal thing is going to be, right? So with that being said, I'll speed this up a little bit so you guys can see the end of this. But thanks for watching. Like, subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you guys next time. Enjoy the blasting.